Hello, everybody. Oh, it's so late for some people, I see. Well, good evening. You can see me. I am not able to see you. I see we have lots of participants with us today. My name is Brett Siders, and I'm an education consultant. And today we're going to be looking at Grammar Q+. But before we do, I want to start with a little game. A fun game that I like to play with my kids called Taboo. Now, if any of you have been to my previous seminars, you'll know that there's a lot of English games and activities that English speakers like to play, and I like to take those and bring them into my ESL classroom. The classic one being a game called Taboo. In Taboo, the word itself, taboo, means something that we don't say or talk about. Things that maybe it's inappropriate or, I don't know, politically incorrect to say. They're taboo, we don't say it. Well, in this game, what we do, it's a word game. It's building on words and word associations. It's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to try to do it here, interacting with you, even though I don't see you. Let's give this a try. In Taboo, what you do is usually one student will come in front of the class and they will sit in front of the class. Now behind them, usually I have like the whiteboard behind them, I will write a word. Now depending on their age level, do I write an easy word, a hard word? If I'm focusing on my grammar, is it a verb? Do I focus on nouns or adjectives? But the main thing is that the person who's in the classroom, they can't see the word, but the entire other students can see the word. And what they do is, looking at that word, they have to think of other words that are associated with it to help the student come up with it. So for instance, if the word is dog, let's say it's dog, what could the student say to make you think of dog? But if the word's dog, what are other words would help me, make me think of the word dog? Please write that now. Write that in the chat box. Can you think of other words that would help me think of the word dog? Someone wrote pet. Very good. That's a word that would start me thinking, but maybe I go cat, a bird. Oh, someone said animal. You could even write an animal that barks, right? Boom, animal that barks. It moves its tail, friend, animal. Very good. Good word associations. Now, what I like to do, I'm going to be a little risky here and try to play this with you for a moment. I actually had my wife write down a word here, a taboo, the word for taboo. I have not seen it. I know I could have easily cheated when none of you were here. I could have peeked at it. I could have done it and I would have looked really smart, but that's not authentic. What I want to do is try to authentically play this game. So I'm actually going to close my eyes. I'm going to put in front of the camera the word that I have not seen. You participants in the box, in the chat, write words that will help me think of this word. Okay, I can't even look at the camera because I'll see it. All right, I hope you're all ready. Looking at the word, here it is. That is the word. This word, I really hope you can see it. You will help me think of. Okay. Oh, I see cave, black, hero, fly, Batman, baseball. Very good. Color. Okay, so is it black or bat? I need to scroll through. Oh, he said black, so it's got to be bat. A bat that it lives in a cave. I'm going to say it's bat. Excellent job. Yeah, and to be honest, when they wrote this, I don't know if they meant like a baseball bat or the animal bat. That's something we'd have to describe a little bit more, but my wife is very sweet and she helped me play that game. This is a terrific game for your students. Now, with my younger students, I would do what we did. They just gave a one word to help associate. For my older kids, I like them to talk and describe it more. This is a descriptive game, right? Most of the words that you all wrote were either nouns or adjectives to help me understand the word. Very, very, very fun game. So I recommend it with your students. You can do it with very young ones, very old ones, but it's more fun with the older students, the more advanced students. Okay. Yes, and I just want to remind, I see Language World has written it many times. Please, everybody, change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees, and that will help us all connect better. Okay. Now, this is one amongst many games and activities I'm going to present to you tonight. I realized that as I was creating this webinar, there's so many activities that we can use with grammar. I really can't go into detail with all of them. But what I hope to do with this webinar is show you some general game ideas that then you can take and you can fit into your lesson plans where you see fit. You're the expert in your class. You know what to do. What I would like to try to do is offer you some more tools that you can take and use in your classroom. And I hope they help. But this might be a webinar that I would recommend going back and rewatching again, because I do think we have a lot of information in it. And again, if you have any questions, I'll stay online at the end and we can talk about it. But please, if you have any questions, constantly ask me. Questions. If you've been to my past webinars, I love asking questions. I love people asking me questions. It's great for language development. So today we're going to be looking at Grammar Q+. And our focus is on that when we have better activities, we'll have better grammar. So what is Grammar Q+? Well, it's lower primary to upper primary book. Remember, back in September, I did a webinar on Grammar Q, which is the 3 books for the lower level students. This book is getting up into more detailed activities, but we're still connecting those grammar skills to speaking and writing. And then also the students have an ebook, which really is encouraging a more self-directed learning style for the students, for them to take the reins. I want to kind of briefly go and give you an overview of the book, and then we're going to kind of go into detail and look at activities connected to parts of the book. So the books are, of course, I would say like mini grammar books, sectioned out into kind of content within grammar. You can see I do like Grammar Q because Grammar Q plus 1, 2, and 3, each sections are similar, but they just become more advanced. So you start out with your nouns, looking at your nouns, and then you move into, as you can see here, your tenses, working with present simple, past simple, future. Then you move into your linking or helping verbs and your imperatives, adjectives, prepositions, and then questions at the end. Again, I'm only showing you this because what I like is that in all 3 books, it follows the same format. So it's much easier for the kids to follow, much easier for you as a teacher to design your activities, but each book becomes more challenging as it progresses. So we move in, and this is definitely, I would say, a true gap fill grammar book where you definitely need to find the different correct usages of the words. It follows a very, very structured path. And what I do like is this book puts extra emphasis on the form. It goes into meaning and use, but it really does show you the correct use of all the different forms. And then you go over, you have several different activities working with these. The book does provide, I've been surprised when grammar books don't provide this, but at least small little dialogue clips that show you the dialogue in use, right? We need to see this being used naturally in some way. So these pictures, albeit small little pictures, do help us see that language used. And we move on. You know, grammar, it's challenging for students because it's one of those things you have to practice it continuously. Even native English speakers, we have to practice our grammar many, many times, right? As a native English speaker, I've taken grammar classes. It's been part of my education all K through 12. So it's just something that we do need prolonged, extended experience with. So we move in, there's self-checks. And again, I think just a lot of great activities for the students to review it. One thing I've noticed about this grammar book, and speaking about reviews, is it provides a lot more reviews for each section. And I know for students it might not be as fun, but the research shows we need constant repetition, constant practice with this. The challenge for us as teachers is, how do we make that repetitive practice fun and engaging for the students? And all the books, they do contain the midterm tests, which I think for me, that's the only time I've ever used book tests, is when they were grammar, because I don't know if you've ever tried to create your own grammar test. It's very challenging. So I love it when the books provide kind of a comprehensive grammar test. Pardon me. I wanted to look at the components. This is for the student books. Now the students have their book, the workbook, and then the hybrid CD. And one of those is the ebook that allows them to have that interactive use with the book. But I think for you, what is more valuable is probably the teacher resources. And if you go to the Language World Books website, one of the teacher tools that we'll look at a little bit are the Ppt Presentations. I can't stop talking about how valuable these are, especially if you're still doing some online teaching. These are each units of the book completely digitalized, all in PPT form for you to present. But I won't talk in that more now. We'll just go and look at it in a little bit. I want to check to make sure if there's any questions. I know I've been talking a lot. If I go too fast, if I'm speaking too quickly, please let me know. If you have a question, please ask. I love it. So what is the goal of teaching grammar? We talked about this. If you were here in September, we talked about this a little bit, but I know it sounds silly, but we have to remember, what is our goal in teaching grammar? Can you real quick take a moment in chat? What do you think? What is the goal of grammar? Why do we teach it? Let me see, or anybody? There we go. To be accurate, okay. This is a question. To speak accurately, I see people are focusing on accuracy. This is an interesting thing. Why are we teaching grammar to the students? To have better development into any conversation? Okay. I like these answers. I will be biased. I do like these answers because one thing I've noticed is teachers forget, when we teach grammar, we're trying to create language users. And we want them to help understand the language system. Someone said we're helping them understand the language system, and that's true. But our goal is to help them become language users and not linguists. If we focus on too much of teaching the grammar form, subject and then verb and then the predicate form and the prepositional phrase, sometimes we get so bogged down in the rules, we're almost learning the language like a linguist would, not a natural user. And something we all take for granted, and I'm sure we all have thought about it at one point or another, everyone here who is attending this, every human being in the world, I don't care what your native language is, you did not learn any grammar rules to speak your language. If you are a native Spanish speaker, you were able to listen and speak Spanish ever before you could talk about the explicit rules of Spanish. Same with English. I as a baby, right, could listen and speak English before I learned the grammar rules. This is actually a funny thing for native English speakers when they teach English overseas. Do you know what they always find? Myself included. Second language English speakers actually know the grammar rules better than native English speakers. And that's not necessarily a compliment. It's what it shows is that in many ESL classrooms, grammar is being focused on form. Grammar is being focused where they're teaching the rules explicitly So the students learn it, but I would say they're not learning the grammar in a natural way, like they did when they learned their native language. So I have some activities that I want to show you that will help them use the grammar in a natural way. Okay. These are great answers. Yeah, newer contexts. And yes, while I am a big proponent on teaching grammar naturally, that's not to say you shouldn't learn grammar explicitly, learning the rules. I would just say maybe we need to switch it. Maybe we need to start using and practicing grammar structures before we start learning the rules about them. Because once we learn the rules, I agree with every other comment in here. It helps our English become better, or it helps our language become better when we learn the grammar rules. And it helps you use the language and communicate your ideas better and more articulately. All right. I will reiterate this just a few times at the beginning here, but when we look at the three parts of grammar instruction, there's the form, the meaning, and the use. One thing I notice, most grammar books, most grammar lessons focus on the form. Pardon me, I'm reading chats also, so I apologize if I take a pause and read that. But what I've noticed is we focus on the form. How do you use it? What's the rule? How is it used? But we're not spending as much time helping the students understand the meaning. What does it mean? What does past simple mean? And then, of course, the correct use. When do I use this, and why am I using this now? I think the why part's like very important for when you learn the continuous tenses, past continuous, present continuous, future continuous. You have to understand that deeper meaning. Why are you using it? So again, all I would like you to take away from this is realize that maybe in our grammar classrooms, we're focusing a lot on form, and maybe we need to help the students understand the meaning and the use of it. And yes, I agree with you, Alejandro, that you want to use the meanings instead of translation. I'm so glad you put that. I would say in every class, the moment I see the most translation used is with grammar. The second language speakers, they'll just switch over to their native language to describe the rules, and it just creates this really inauthentic learning environment. So we want to add the meaning and the use of it. So it's something, as I said, it's this difference of grammar, the knowledge of grammar rules versus your ability to use it. As I said, I've met people, second language speakers, who had more knowledge of grammar at me at one point, but my ability to use it far exceeded theirs because I've had so much more natural practice with it. So again, let's teach those grammar rules and find ways for them to naturally use it. So again, last time I'll bring it up, but just something I think when we teach our grammar lessons, I'm a little tongue-tied tonight, it's very late for me. We have to remember that when we were first language speakers, we learned grammar implicitly. We're babies kind of on the floor, listening to the adults speak, babies practicing, right? All that baby talk, blah, 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 blah. That's them slowly developing their phonemes, developing their understanding of grammar usage, their tone, their inflection. All of that is happening since childhood. And there's even research to show it's occurring when the baby's still in the mother's womb. And the mother is speaking to the baby, there's language development happening there. So we have to realize, as first language speakers, we all had so much more experience and exposure to it. Whereas with second language speakers, the grammar, they're mostly learning it explicitly, just through direct instruction. This is past simple, this is simple present, this is what it means, let's practice it. So again, something to take into mind, something to remind ourselves and wonder, how can we make our grammar lessons more natural? And, you know, the simple answer, it's not going to be blow your minds away, but I think we have to blend the book work with speaking practice. And there's many different ways to do that, many different activities, many different games, and we'll look at some of those today. So again, just to review, we'll look at the Grammar Q Plus and see why it is, I think, a little bit different in its structure, and I want to then go into the games and activities that we can connect to the book. So again, I had mentioned that the book is structured, you know, with different grammar themes, you know, nouns, tense, verbs, adjectives or adverbs, which, you know, modifiers, and then prepositions. So when I develop games sometimes, one of the things I like to do is create the games per section. But before we do that, I wanted to take a look at, I had mentioned the teacher's tool. The teacher's tool is everything within the book content with a little bit more. So pardon me for a second, I would like to switch over and share. Here we go. So I just want to take a quick look, but this is exactly where if you were to download this teacher tool, this is exactly what you would see. Even the audio sounds and the animations are all included. You don't have to design anything. It's been designed for you, which is if you're a teacher in the 20th century, you need as much time to develop your lessons as possible. So when someone else has made the materials, I think it's wonderful. So going down, you know, it just goes through the book. Again, we saw even the same pictures from that unit when we look at it. It gives them lots of practice. Now this, I would say about each teacher tool, it was roughly about 25 slides. So I'm not going to go through it all now, but it includes all the parts of the book, including, as you see there, that's what I want to show you, the fill in the blanks. And what makes that valuable is then if you're teaching, whether you're teaching online or an in-person class, you can make this now engaging, right? You can ask the students, they're looking up at the board and they need to give the answers to fill it out. So again, you can use this teacher tool to help engage the students with the work. I did want to show you just kind of, I know it's a little bit further down, but truly all the activities in the book, and I think I can just pull up my copy of the book right here with all my notes in it. It's every section of the book with the answers. And of course the answers have, you know, animation so you can reveal it once the students have answered it. So again, these PowerPoint tools for the teachers are made to be interactive when you work with the students, which is a wonderful feature. I'm going to switch back and say, what I like to do with these activities is incorporate them into the sections. What I mean by that is one way I've used grammars with, one way I've used games with the Grammar Q Plus is how I structure my games. And I'm going to leave it to you. How do you want to structure your games? I've truly, for grammar, used these 3 different styles of games, and I found them very effective. So actually, when I taught with Grammar Q, not Plus, it was Grammar Q for the younger students, the regular books, I did this first type of game. I did content games. So what that means is when we were doing our section on nouns, our unit on nouns, I would go and Google games about nouns. And now there are infinite, there's no way I could put it in a webinar, infinite noun or word games that you can look up. But I recommend this structure, right? You do nouns, go find only noun games. You come to the verbs, you find verb games. Adjectives and adverbs, you find games related to those. Now, a completely different style is role-playing games. This is something after certain activities, mostly with tenses. I use this a lot for tenses. There's a game called Fortune Teller, Detective, or Late for School, where they are role-playing speaking games to engage the kids in I won't say authentic, they're fun, somewhat authentic speaking activities that require them to use whatever your target grammar structure is. The last section, I said umbrella games. Maybe I should call these even my lazy games. These are, it's a type of game which I can truly take into almost any different lesson, whether it's grammar or it's a writing activity, it's a vocabulary activity, and I can use these games. These are games that are just changeable. I can put them with any different kind of content. If that sounds confusing, I apologize. It'll be more clear when we go and look at it in more detail. But again, the umbrella games I say the term umbrella because these games can cover many different areas. You want to review with vocab? Okay, you can use it here. You want to review with grammar structures? Okay, use that there. One of them is called wet tissue, 3 boxes and a ball, 4 skills relay. In a previous webinar, I've talked about the wet tissue because it's my go-to activity, especially if you need some gap activities. You have about 10 minutes and you don't know what to do. These are great activities to go to. And yes, someone had asked about the 4 skills relay. I will go into that more in detail. We're going to be looking at these games in detail. 4 skills relay is one of my favorite games. One of my favorite games. It's the best 4 skill language game that I've ever come across. And we'll go into detail in a little bit. But again, so if I was going to structure it on content, again, I want to now focus on if I was going to do the content game. So I would find games with nouns. I'd find games with tenses and verbs. And again, there's no way I can list all the different games that are available on the internet. I recommend to you, just try this. If it's your week or 2 weeks to do nouns, go Google, literally just go ESL, nouns, games. And then you're going to have to find the one out of the many that you want to use. But the internet has so many different options. So this is one way to do it. And I've done this before. So in my noun section, a common noun game I would do are like scavenger hunt. These are simple activities you can use. Again, scavenger hunt can be used with different areas, but I would say I've used it a lot with articles. So in this case, you don't have to follow these rules exactly, but just to get the idea. So if we're wanting the students to understand the difference between and the, great thing to do, have the kids in groups or in small teams, and then using magazines, they kind of cut out and find the different words. And then often to help motivation, I do make fun little competitions or games out of it. And, I say, hey, the first to find 10 and match them correctly win. But again, this is just one game. This is just a game for articles. You might be able to use it for other things, but I've only been able to use it for articles. Another one, I would say this is a little bit more able to use with different activities. It's called the trash ball game, right? So of course, if you're covering nouns, which is almost always the first section of any grammar book, you focus on, the person, place, thing, or animal. Great thing I do, right? I literally just go get, I don't usually use trash cans. I've used boxes or something. And, you put little labels on them. And then usually using the cards that come with the books, I'll go through, okay? Like we did, we were looking at bat. Bat is a person, place, thing, or animal. And the student with crumpled pieces of paper have to throw it. And now this is one of those activities that I use because what does the throwing the paper ball do? It makes it fun. If I just showed them the word, hey, is it a person, place, thing, or animal? Okay, good, it's an animal. Gets kind of boring. To keep the kids going, I have these little kind of fun activities that help them. Another one I do a lot. I would have liked to have gone more in detail if I had time, but I have always preferred to focus a lot on modifiers. So that is adverbs and adjectives. I think it's the one area second language learners don't get enough practice on, and it's something that makes the language so much more rich. You know, I say it's a house. Okay, what kind of house? It's a large house. It's a beautiful house. It's a scary house. All of that is so important for getting more authentic, rich language. So I do a lot of games with adverbs and adjectives. This is one, it's a charades game. Again, if you've been to my previous webinars, you know I love charades. The resources, you don't need really that much. In this case, slips of paper, and that's it. In this game, what we do is we have two different activities, two different groups of paper. In one, it has different verbs on it. So it can have walking, running, eating, sleeping, whatever. And the other slip, it's an adverb. It's an adverb. So angrily, happily, tiredly, wantingly, whatever the adverbs they're working on. Now what the students need to do is they then need to show you. They need to show you what it is. So I would like to do that right now. I'm gonna try to do my best to tell you, to show you what I'm doing. And please, in your chat, can you tell me, what am I doing? What am I doing? And not only what am I doing, how am I doing it? So if you think I'm sleeping, okay, well, how am I sleeping? Am I sleeping noisily? Am I sleeping quietly? How? Okay, let me try this. So remember, you're gonna say, what's the verb? What's the adverb? What am I doing? Okay, ready? Pardon me. Are you ready? Here I go. Now, and maybe that seems strange to you, what was I doing? What was I doing? Okay, eating pleasantly, happily eating. Yes, you can do it. Yes, I'm eating, and many kids will do this. I'm eating, but how? How am I eating? Right? The verb, they pick up on the verb quickly, but I want the students to look at how am I doing it? Eating pleasantly, good, good. Okay, maybe I need to even, tiredly. Okay, I need to show a little bit more. Ready? So what do you think? Oh, see, maybe I need to work on my acting skills here. Well, this was a challenging one. I was eating lovingly. And I know satisfied, pleasantly, those all work. But one of the fun things about this game is you might get random things. And that's what makes it so fun for the kids. What I was gonna do, but I wrote it down there, is I remember one of my students got eating and then angrily. And they had to show eating angrily. And it was just hilarious as they were like furiously eating something. Or, you know, someone has to walk tiredly. One of the reasons I like this game, and I've charades, and I've also talked about in the past drama games, is that these require the students to think about the language on a deeper level, right? For instance, you know, they could see walking angrily. Oh, I know what that means. But by actually doing it, oh, walking angrily, oh, what am I doing? Oh, they are now having this like mind-body connection. They are thinking and feeling what walking angrily means. So this activity, I do it because it's great for them practicing, developing a deeper understanding of the language. And it's one of those things, it's so fun. The kids keep on doing it. They want to volunteer. They enjoy it because it looks silly usually. Now I want to kind of look, I want to move away from content games. If instead you were going to have more speaking games, these are kind of activities I've used, and just to be perfectly honest with you, sometimes it's been very successful, sometimes it's been too challenging for them. It really does depend on your students. What's their level? Where are they at? But the first one is called fortune teller. Now this is, let's say you've been practicing future tense. Well, in this game, students brainstorm questions about their future, questions. For instance, will I be rich? Will I have a cat or dog? Will I whatever? And then someone is now designed to be the fortune teller. Now, I've learned from experience, it's good for the fortune teller to have some device, a coin, dice, if hopefully dice don't look like it's like they're gambling or something, or a paper fortune teller. I have the picture in the little corner, one of those things. It's very important to use because otherwise, if it's just the student, someone, fortune teller, will I be rich? And the student, no, you will not. Like, I've watched students get upset about that. So if you use a coin, if the coin flips and the coin says, no, you will not, or yes, you will, then the students don't get too upset about it. Or if you use one of those paper fortune tellers, they think it's fun and wild. But what is this doing? It's practicing question and then answer form. Usually yes and no. Yes, you will. No, you won't. Pardon me, so we've got a few more chats. Ooh, tarot cards. Someone mentioned tarot cards. Yeah. Anything you can do for a fortune teller. Again, what's the real focus of the game? Practicing the questions, practicing the affirmative and negative answers using the future tense. Another similar game, but for a different tense, is a game, I've heard it called alibi before, but I've always thought of it as detective. And maybe some of you have seen this. Oh, interesting points people are making it here. Yeah, someone said a bottle, and I understand that now. Oh, some great ideas you guys are putting in the chat. Thank you so much. For the game of detective, though, this is if you're focusing on past tense and your questions. Usually I have one student, or sometimes as the teacher, I've just done this. We're suspected of a crime. You can add more detail to this. It depends. If your students are lower level, you might need to come up with some ideas, like what's the crime? Maybe a donut was stolen, or someone ate my lunch. It can be something innocent and sweet, right? I in my classes with my K through 6th grade students, I'm not like having anything inappropriate or violent crimes. It's silly, light crimes. But now the goal is the other students have to ask questions to find out the truth. So this is why I think it's better for a stronger student or the teacher to kind of be the suspect, and then the class has to ask the questions. So, you can have them brainstorm it, right? Where were you on Saturday night? Who were you with? When I do this, I've always done this activity after I review the WH questions, different WH questions they can ask. But this is, again, a good way, like watching kids play this game. They can't just speak and open and ask random questions. They have to think deeply about it. They have to make sure it's in the past tense. So another reason I like these games is this deeper thought process in it and more authentic speaking practice. Another one, late for school, is kind of a fun one. And usually I find the easier one to do with my students. And you can change it depending on the tense. Is it past tense, or even I've done this with past continuous, and of course questions. In this one, one person, or I have the class, pretends to be the teacher. And then one person, or I sometimes do it like as the student, the kids always find it so funny, I'm the late student. And I walk in and I give an excuse for being late. And now the students have to ask questions to find out more, poke holes in mine. At the bottom, though, I did want to put out, I didn't fully put it out there. I wanted to put an example of what one of my students did when I did this game. So it was actually a student who was in one of the more advanced classes. And the student just started the game. You say that I was late because, and then the student thinks of why they were late. He was like, I was late because I missed the bus. And then the students who were playing as the teacher asked, why did you miss the bus? And his answer was, because my house burned down. Now I'm not gonna go there, but I gotta tell you, then the questions the other kids asked, like, why did your house burn down? Or one student said, did you burn your house down? I mean, this whole fun, crazy conversation occurred, and they were having fun playing playing with each other back and forth, not realizing that the whole time they're practicing using the past tense. They're practicing asking questions. It was just so wonderful. So again, I've seen this work really well, and I've seen it work not so well. So it's something I think you should try, see how it works with your kids. Oh, pardon me, I'm trying to look at maybe one. Sorry, I saw Alejandro. This game will be easy because in Colombia he says, many students come late to class. Well then, yeah, they should have lots of different excuses to give. I do like this game though, yeah, because it's much more familiar to students. They have a lot more language that they can use with it. The last type of games I want to show you, again, I call them umbrella games, or just to be perfectly honest, it's like my lazy games when I don't have a lot of time or resources to create an entire game. But I call them my umbrella because again, they reach out and I can use these activities in many areas, but they're great for making reflective repetition fun. I deliberately put that there, reflective repetition. Now, often we think of repetition, especially as language learners, we all think of it as a negative word, right? It's a bad word, repetition. I just go over and over saying the same thing over and over. Reflective repetition is something different. I'm not saying it's fun and wonderful and wild and cool, but it does help them have a deeper meaning. Pardon me, a deeper understanding of the language that they're using. I'll look at two examples of that. And now, maybe the number one reason I use this, in my teaching experience, I got almost zero funding, zero supplies. So I had to come up a lot with my own. So these materials were easy to find and almost low cost. Sometimes I could even just find them in the classroom and use them. And again, it can be user's review with most material. These are great for goodness, I'm losing my ability to speak clearly. I apologize. These are great for grammar games, but then also they're very good for other language games as well. So the first one I go to that the students always look very confused when I set this game up, I call it the wet tissue ball game. Some of you, this might be triggering a memory from a past webinar we did, but this is an activity I've used where all I have to do is I get tissue paper or I get toilet paper, and it's so funny, every time I bring this, the kids just look at it and go, ew! And I'm like, it's clean, it's fine, it's wonderful. Don't worry, I wouldn't bring in dirty toilet paper to play a game. What kind of person do you think I am, right? But all you have to do, cheap material, you get wad of paper, second wad, and then the only other thing you need is a cup of water. Now, when you dip it in the water, it becomes soggy and gross, which the kids will always think is kind of funny and silly and wild, because they've never really done anything like this in a class before. Then what I do is on the whiteboard, I would say it requires a whiteboard. I have not used this with a chalkboard before. I'm sure it would stick, but maybe the water wouldn't be good for your chalkboard. I'm not sure. But I would say many people have whiteboards that they can use. So in this case, all I do is I draw a bullseye. For my grammar games, I draw a bullseye. That's it. And then I make points. So you can see outside is 1, and then 2 points, 3 points, 5 points, and the absolute bullseye is 8 points. Now, it's very important, that 1 point right there. You would not believe how important that 1 point outside the circle is. So what happens is the students come up, and I usually have a line, you know, they have to stand at a line. And it's a kind of a speak to play game. If you say the correct target structure or answer the question correctly, then you can throw it and get points for your team. Now, my big thing here is, obviously, you'll have some students who are very good speakers, but very poor throwers. Maybe they don't have a lot of practice throwing. So they'll give you the answer correctly, but then they throw it and it sticks on the board, but really doesn't do anything. That's why I have the 1 point. The 1 point means you answered it correctly, you tried, good. I'm going to give you a point for that because you did what we needed you to do. But let me tell you, those points, having those various points, it keeps kids going. One time, I just did this activity almost for a half an hour because I wanted to see, are they going to get bored with it eventually? Eventually, they'll get bored. They'll get bored of answering the question and throwing it and looking at the points and marking the points. They never did. They never did, especially when I had the class like in 2 teams, you know, team A, team B, and they added all their points together and added their points. I mean, it just became this game that they're so focused. Their focus was on the game, but the whole time they're having to use the language in order to play it. The next game, it's a very similar concept that I use, especially for my grammar games. I call it 3 boxes and a ball. I know my game titles aren't very creative or imaginative. I apologize. But this is literally where I get 3 boxes. I've usually used like cardboard boxes. Like this is an example. This would be like the smallest box. And then you have a medium-sized box and then a larger box and then a ball. And that's all you need. These are the 4 materials you need. 3 boxes and a ball. Now, in it, you, of course, each box is worth a different amount of points. So I usually, you know, the smaller box is like 5 points, the medium box is 3 points, the bigger box is 2 points. And again, I've used this activity so many times. The kids never get bored with it, and they get plenty of speaking opportunities. But it's, again, a game where it's, I call it speak to play. If you speak correctly, then you can do it. And again, if even my lower learners, if they are attempted, as long as they're not just standing there quietly and silently, if they're trying to say something, I give them an attempt. I want to encourage that. But this is almost a psychological aspect here. I definitely recommend 3 boxes. Don't pick 1 box. Don't pick 1 box and you answered the question correctly. Like maybe the teacher says, what did you do yesterday? The student says, I ate pizza yesterday. Correct past tense, correct sentence. Okay, they get to throw the ball. I've tried this where it's just 1 box and they do it for a little bit and then they get bored. But by having the 3 boxes there of the different points, oh my goodness, this keeps them far more engaged, far more on the edge of their seat. Are they going to get it? You know, again, I do 2 different teams, team A, team B. They accumulate their points. Another reason I do the team games rather than individual is they're far more supportive of each other, right? If their teammate throws it and doesn't get it, they might be upset, but the team learns. I teach them, help them, encourage them. If you get upset at them, that's not going to help your team at all. So there's a lot of other skills they learn with this game as well. But again, this is one of those that I'm still amazed after all these years of using it, how engaged the kids are, how often they will come back to this activity. So again, I'm sorry, before I move on to this next one, these 2 ones, especially the wet tissue game and the ball tossing game, are activities you can use with any different material, any content, but it's something that's going to help you with reflective repetition. They're going to be practicing it again and again without getting bored. So that's the big thing for me. And it literally will cost you nothing, most likely. You can find 3 boxes and a ball pretty much anywhere. The next activity, information gap activities. I went over this briefly in my previous webinar where we looked at Grammar Q, the younger level books. But I want to review this again because these are amazing activities that I just don't see used as often as they could be. So for any of you who has not done an information gap activity, it's simple, right? It's students have only a part of the information. So like maybe you have a story. You have a story, but student A has only a part of the story. Student B has the other part. Now the goal is for them to understand the entire story, but the only way they can do that is by speaking and listening to each other effectively. And the reason I emphasize effectively is when kids start this activity, you watch them, blah, 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 they'll speak, hey, what's that about? Or they'll ask a question or shout at each other. And they can't hear each other. They can't understand the person's pronunciation. But the great thing about information gap, it's considered a cooperative activity. If I'm with, let's say someone out there is my partner, and they're having difficulty speaking or answering it. If I'm their partner, I get angry, like maybe it's Alejandro, I'm sorry to call you out, Alejandro, you've been giving me great information, so I think you don't mind me using you for this. If I was like, Alejandro, come on, what is it? Teacher, Alejandro doesn't know, but is that gonna help us get the entire story together? No. And kids learn this immediately. They learn it, they see just the bad communication and they just fall apart. The activity for them falls apart. And they'll look around the class and they'll see other kids who even maybe don't have the English skills they do, working better because they're speaking clearly. They're speaking slowly. They're listening carefully. This is almost far more of a listening activity. I have to actively listen to you to get the information I need. And if I'm rude to you, if I try to rush you or push you, it only makes me fail and it makes you fail, and together we fail. So it really teaches kids how to cooperatively and authentically use the language. So that's why it's my go-to activity a lot. They do require a little bit more preparation. I did this last time and I would like to do it again to emphasize it. This is, I would say, a basic information gap using shapes. And with shapes, in this case, let's say your grammar focus is prepositions of place. In this case, to the left or on the top, at the bottom, whatever your target structures have been, you can use those in this game. So in this activity, what I would like to do with you is to play this. Pardon me, I'm trying to adjust things. So what I would like you to do right now, we're going to do this activity with these shapes. If you could please get a piece of paper and a writing utensil and have that in front of you. We'll use that for this activity. So again, please have a piece of paper and a writing utensil to use. About 15 seconds. I know you might need to go and get that from somewhere. So again, a piece of paper and a writing tool, and we're going to do this basic information gap together. Okay. So okay, excellent, thank you. Thank you, Alejandro, and I hope you weren't upset by me using you as an example. I'm assuming you're a very good sport. Okay, so now in this activity, this is where it's the gap. I have the information, you don't. I need to speak clearly, you need to listen carefully. So in the end, your information looks exactly like mine. So let's give that a try. All right, so first I'm gonna, sorry. All right, first, I want you to look at the shapes. We have a, what is it? A long rectangle, a square, an oval, a circle, and a triangle. We're gonna be using those shapes and putting them in a certain position. Let's give this a try. Okay, so step one. There is a horizontal rectangle. There is a horizontal rectangle. So on your paper, all you have to draw is, and I won't even show you, you just have to draw the horizontal rectangle. Okay? Next, step two. There is a vertical oval on top of the rectangle. One more time. There is a vertical oval on top of the rectangle. we would have to assume, of course, that with this class, I already taught the students the difference between vertical and horizontal, of course. Step 3, here's our step 3. There is a square to the right of the oval. There is a square to the right of the oval. That was step 3. Next, step 4. There is a circle to the right of the square. One more time, step 4. There is a circle to the right of the square. And our last step, step 5. There is a triangle on the top of the circle. There is a triangle on the top of the circle. All right. Now, after it's finished, the goal is, in this case, for the students to maybe turn around or look and see, do they have now the same information? So if I were to ask you, remember step 1, we had the rectangle, the vertical rectangle on top of the horizontal, the vertical oval on top of the horizontal rectangle, the square to the right of the oval, the circle to the right of the square, and then lastly, the triangle on top of the circle. What else does basic information gap do? It's great comprehension check, right? If I have 2 students working on this, like when I've done this activity to work on prepositions, I've cut the little pieces out and each student has it and they actually just sit back to back, telling each other and setting out. And then when they're done, they look, do we have the same thing? It's the best comprehension check. You can see, were you listening carefully? Were you speaking clearly? And did you use the words correctly? Because if you did, it'll be the exact same shape. So now, as I said, this is basic. Now there are more advanced ones, and I'll be honest, it's going to be, it's challenging online. It's challenging with remote learning. I have not practiced it as much with online learning, but I've done this many, many times with in-person classes. And this one, I've actually used this picture countless times. This is another information gap, but using pictures. Again, students, I put them in pairs, student A, student B. There needs to be space in between them, because what do you think kids will do? You know, they'll try to look over at the other kid's picture and just, you know, find the easiest way to cheat. So I have to walk around and facilitate to make sure they're separate and they're speaking. Because that's the other thing. If they're further apart, they have to speak louder. They have to speak clearer. See, I do all these things in my classrooms to really get them speaking as much as possible. Another reason why is because depending on the culture that you're in, I taught a lot in South Korea, where many times the kids were a little bit more reserved on speaking English as their second language. Or in other cultures, kids might be far more expressive. So again, my background is working with kids who were really resistant to speaking English. So I have to find ways to encourage that. The same thing in this case, student A has their picture, student B has their picture. Now, all I can say is please look closely at the pictures. I'm sure we've seen these games before, like in the newspapers, right? It's the spot the difference game. Can you spot the difference? Well, in this case is, can you find the difference? So I have my students, you know, student A, they tell them what's in their picture, right? If I'm student A, I go, there is a coffee mug on the table. Now, obviously that's me saying it. When I've done this with my students, especially young students, right? The beginning, they're not speaking that fluently. You know, they say, okay, there is coffee. And then they'll show, where is the coffee? The coffee on the table. Oh, okay, is it to the right or to the left? To the left. I'm sorry, I know I was talking to myself there, but I've literally done this so many times. that's the conversation you see, because it's not easy. It's not clear. They can't just look at each other's pictures and do it. So they have to have all this back and forth conversation to be able to solve it together. And then they come back, they sit side by side, finding the differences. They found them together, and to see the excitement on their face is wonderful. And they didn't realize this whole task was accomplished by authentic speaking and authentic listening. If you want to practice more writing, you can use information gaps with writing. I say story information gaps, and I would say this probably is a little bit more of the common form of information gap text. So it's very similar. Student A, instead of a picture, they have, text of a story. Now student B has that same text. This is a story about John, who's from Toronto in Canada. Okay, so they have the same story, but they're missing different pieces of information. What I do with my students, as you notice in bold here, I will actually put, it's a person. The missing information is about a person, or the missing information is about a place. The reason I do that, then it helps them form the question. If they know, oh, it's a person, I need to know person, then they know what? It's a who question. Oh, it's a place. Oh, that's a where question. Okay. So that's why I often will put those. If you really want to make it a challenge for them, like when I've done adult teaching, I don't put those in there. I don't put place, person, or thing. I don't tell it what it is to make it extra challenging for them. So let's just try this as an example. This is one I have used before. So student A, we see the information they have. Hello, I'm a person. I'm from England and I live in place. Okay. Now for A, I want you guys, the participants, please put in your chat, what questions should student A ask student B? What are the questions? So for the first one, hello, I'm blank, it's a person. What's the question I need to ask to get that answer? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? If I said that to student B, who are you? They'll say, oh, I'm student B. Now, where are you from? So let's think about this. I love it. Two people have said, who are you? Is it the person's name? I think we're getting confusing here. It's not about the person. It's not about the speaker. I see where the confusion is coming in. Let me then just show you. So this is who is speaking, right? Who are you? That would mean I'm asking my partner, hey, student B, who are you? And they'd be like, Brett, you know who I am. I'm student B. So actually, I'm not asking that. I'm like, who is speaking, or who is the person speaking? This is challenging, right? And this is important. I'm so glad that's the answer you gave me, because this teaches them, right? They have to think deeply about it. Oh yeah, who are you? That would be the student. No, I want, who is the person in the story? Maybe that's another, who is the person in the story? So there's more than one right answer, more than one way to frame it, but it does help them understand the meaning of what they're saying. So in this case, student B has, it says, hello, I'm Steve. So student B would say, the person speaking is Steve. Okay. Then next we see, student A says, okay, hello, I'm Steve. I'm from England and I live in, so student A needs to say, hey, where does Steve live? Where does Steve live? And then student B would look in and student B says, oh, he lives in London. But student B has questions to ask, right? His question, where is Steve from? Now again, give and take. This is definitely out of all information gaps for more of the advanced students. You can either have the questions for them or require them to form their own questions. But again, the back and forth, I've watched them. I've watched the students look, when they have to form the questions and they're thinking about it, they think so deeply. That's what we need our activities to do. Pardon me. So these are great activities that are going to get our kids speaking. They're going to get them using the language, using the grammar in a more authentic way, which I think, you know, if they already understand the grammar form, using this helps them understand that meaning a little bit more and the when and the why to use it, the use of the language. Well, I want to remind you that we have gone over a lot of information here, that if ever you want to kind of review some of the information from this webinar or from previous webinars, please visit the YouTube website where you can find all the webinars from Language World, and they'll have those all there for you. This might be one you need to review because we did go over lots of different activities that, trust me, will be very, very effective. And I would recommend, if the idea of information gap is still a little fuzzy, if I didn't articulate it or explain it clear enough, I apologize, but please go to YouTube, go to Google. I would recommend YouTube. Go to YouTube and watch like a video of it in action. It'll make so much sense and you'll see how effective it is. Also, please, to know about future webinars, I know there's been some changes with the November schedule, but to stay up to date, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram so you can know about upcoming webinars. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and learning. For people who, what is it? It's 9 o'clock for some people. I think it's tremendous. You as educators continuing your education. So many teachers, they leave the school, they leave their teacher college, and they stop learning themselves. As to be effective teachers, especially language learning teachers, we have to continuously learn. We have to continuously grow. So thank you so much, everybody. There's been a lot here, so I'm going to stay on. I'll just kind of be quiet. If anybody wants to answer questions, I would love to help you with those. So if you have questions, I'll have answers. And if I don't have the answer, I will certainly look for it and try to find it for you. You're welcome. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Alejandro, for introducing yourself too. All right. Again, I'll kind of sit here quietly and smile and try to look charming. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And if you feel you got everything you need, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, or maybe, I know some people might even be in Asia. Have a wonderful day for you. And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. So goodbye, guys. Thank you.